I guess I do miss her. Hello, my name is Marvin, and you'll be watching me play Minecraft as I speak about my past relationship. I am currently 18 years old, so it's not been a long life, but it's been pretty long for me. I recently broke up. Not recently, better terms, it's been around, I would say, 8 months since me and my ex broke up. And at times, I tell myself that I don't miss her, but I can clearly tell that I do from ignore my dog, but I can tell that I do at times. Even though deep down I really want to come to terms with the fact that it can no longer happen again. So I try to convince myself saying I don't miss her. But how do you erase almost 3 years of constant advancements for a person? She was a very beautiful person in my eyes at the time we spoke, at the moments that we've talked, and in our relationship. When first getting to know her, I didn't really think much of it. I liked her, but I didn't really understand how much I really liked her until maybe 4 months after we first initially met. She was a friend of a friend, and I had no interest in her at the time. She was just a person I would see on a day to day basis. But I really started to get to know her, understand her, and I realized that I liked her. And very weird to say, but I really never liked people as much. I've had like at least 3 instances before where I've liked certain people, but that never really worked out. So, being the kid I was and believing I was a hopeless romantic, I approached the question on my own and started asking her. My first initial response from her was no. The second initial response was no, and then a yes, which was weird at the time because after that second no was a conversation we had where she said she wasn't ready to talk or was ready for a relationship. And not even 2 weeks after, she came to me and told me that she had liked me, which at the time I found kind of weird for being a young person. I well understood and knew context clues very well. I had known she was talking to somebody prior, though she never mentioned it to anybody. She did post a story about it on her Instagram, which I recall still. She had received a gift from a guy, and then a week later she tells me that she likes me. From my understanding, I heard that the guy said something terrible to her, and she just didn't want that. So I was kind of the rebound, you would say. We initially talked for around 5 months, and in those 5 months, I got to know a lot of herself. I got to know a lot of her past, a lot of her feelings. Not really feelings, but what she wanted me to know. But things happened, and she thought I was too clingy and too much in love, you would say, which I guess I was. So we stopped talking. A week later, we started talking again as friends. This was during summer, and then came sophomore year, where we were talking for a bit, just as friends, but I had mentioned something that really messed up my chance of us talking again. And I guess she went and talked to another guy, which is an episode of betrayal. I wasn't hers, she wasn't mine. So, as I was sad, I didn't really mind. They got together for around 5 months. And then during winter, she broke it off with him. And then came the rebound, me again. This time, I really thought it was the time, you know? It was the moment. It was the try. But after some instances happen and things happen that I wish that never did. There was this night where we had gone to a party of our friends and we were already being very distant to each other, even though we sat next to each other. From using my brain, which is surprising, I had realized at least a week before that she was talking with their ex again. And you could argue that when you're in a talking stage with somebody, it's not that you guys are exclusive. But that's not my understanding of a talking stage. I understand talking stages as if you're getting to know somebody, wanting to actively pursue this person. So you're actively getting to know them, understanding them, seeing how they're like. So maybe she thought that. But she kept it a secret, which I knew she would, but she kept it a secret to everyone. And this guy wasn't really a great guy towards her, from what she said. So I was very confused as to why she was talking to him and talking to me again. And that night, she had basically made the night about herself, even though it's a party of our friend's birthday. She had went to another side of the house, you would say. It was more of an inside and outside party, and it was a tent set up in the driveway, blocking the whole driveway and then blocking the front yard. She had gone to the front yard and started crying, apologizing to everyone around her, and saying how bad she felt for leading me on. And I already knew something was going to happen that night, and it did. And before she actually said anything, I was talking to some friends at the party, telling them that I feel sort of clench on my heart. I guess you could say it was like a pit in my stomach, but I felt the heart, you could say, break. So after this moment, I was the designated driver. I was driving at the time, and I took everyone home. And surprisingly, I mean, not surprisingly, she wanted to be taken home first. They had made up this whole lie, her and the friends right next to us, saying that, oh yeah, she needed to get home or else she would get in trouble. So I had to drop her off, even though we lived extremely close to each other. And then, as I dropped her and everyone else home, she had texted me saying that she didn't want to talk to me anymore. She felt bad, that she felt like she was leading me on, and that I was a really good person, but she was still talking to her ex, which really did break my heart. I was infuriated. I was mad, as the response is normal. I was mad, but I couldn't be mad towards her. I was in love, you would say. I truly did love her. And so, 2 weeks later, we spoke again as friends. And all I could think about was, why would she just lie to me? Why? But I don't let that stop me from texting her, talking to her, just being there for her. And once again, he did something bad, and she ended it. And once again, I was the rebound. And I would tell myself that I would give her one more chance, one more chance to for us to be together. And so I gave this chance, but I guess I was speaking to everyone of our friends about the whole situation about us, our talking stage. And I initially spoke to only 3 people about what was going on, mainly because I wanted clarity. I wanted people to know if I were to act a different way. I wanted them to know why. And she had gotten extremely mad over that while I was at work. And while working, I was getting yelled at by my dad because I was on the phone trying to apologize to her for something that I feel like is completely normal to do. And so we broke it off and hadn't spoken for a while until the next school year came along, junior year, and we still haven't talked. Not until September, where I guess she was trying to hint at me, and trying to talk to me again. But I didn't see any of these hints. Other people did. I was clearly blind and never saw that. But she had made our friends, our mutual friends, call me back to the school after I was about to walk out. And then she posed me with the question of if I would want to go to homecoming with her. And so at the time, I was going through a lot. I was dealing with my own depression, but I was fixing it. I was growing, you would say. I was at that moment happy. I was working out. I was hanging out with my friend. friends, I mean, and just being on my own was enough. And when she had asked me the question, I was lost. If I were to bring the initial recording, it would just be me standing there with no words, a plain face, and just pity at the moment. We hadn't talked, and she asked me a question, a very big question, about whether we can go together to homecoming, which means initiating another talking stage, which in that moment, it was more like 50-50 whether it would be a yes or no. And I had gone with a yes, mainly because I told myself again she would have one more chance. One more chance. We would give us one more chance. And so I did. If you were to ask any of the friends around me who saw me being asked by her, you could tell that I was in distraught. I was kind of mad and concerned and sad because I actually didn't want to say yes, but I felt bad because she had spent time working on that poster with the friends. And mind you, the same friend who I was texting the night before saying that I think I'm not going to ever talk to her again because I really love her. But I guess she shared my voice messages that I sent, and they just made the board, you would say. And I was mad in my head because I realized that the same moment that they asked me, that she asked me. So I was confused, lost, but then homecoming came around and we were doing great. I'd asked her to be my girlfriend, and then we were officially dating. 2 years had gone by, and now we're officially dating. And so it went on almost throughout our whole junior year until nearing the end, second semester, you would say. It was a lot of arguing, mainly from her, and me just trying to figure out how to understand what she needed. And she would just give me such false and bland responses and just not specify what she wanted, what she needed from me. And I told her that I would try my best. I would try, I would change. And she wanted me to change so badly. Someone who I wasn't. And it was hurting me on the inside. It was hurting me a lot because you had initially wanted me, but you wanted me to not be me again. And so I grew some self worth and realized my own value. And I had ended things off. We ended things off on a really good note, you would say, where there might have been a chance to come back. But I didn't want that. I didn't want there to be a chance for us to ever be again. So the next school day, I'd spoken to some friends in the mutual classroom where we all were kind of in out, and I had told them that I was kind of talking to somebody else at the time we were dating. a lie, a very huge lie. I believe that cheating is a very disdainful thing, and I would never do it. Just break up. Break up if you're gonna want to cheat. Break up. But I had lied about that, and had said it very loud, hoping that somebody that I wanted to hear it would hear it, or would hear me having a conversation about our relationship and our breakup in general. But somebody did hear it, and they told her, and she had gotten very, very mad. She hadn't texted me at all, but she had posted on her story of all of the stuffed animals I had gotten her, ripped up, cut with scissors, and with a huge smile in her face. And at the moment where I saw it, I didn't really care. I looked at my phone and then I just went and took a nap. Because at that moment I realized if she was able to do that with such a smile on her face, then she already wanted that relationship to be over to begin with. She wasn't mature about a thing at all. What she wanted a lot in a relationship was maturity. She thought that she was a very mature person and she wanted our relationship to be very mature. And I'd argue with her, telling her that maturity isn't something you can just do. You shouldn't expect maturity from like me, but realizing she didn't really understand what it meant to be mature. I also really did not understand either, but I just didn't want to be someone's toy. So, without wanting to have that chance again, I lied. And so she had posted a post which was directed to me and her friends had seen it too. Our friends. So they knew we were no longer talking, no longer dating. And she had written in her caption, I can't remember the words, but it was something to do about I dated a bisexual man. And mind you, I've never told her I was bisexual. I told that one person that I wanted to hear me mention the fake cheating about that. And so I learned that there was just a lot of distrust in my friends, and so I had dropped them. And I knew I wanted to drop them as soon as I learned that she was talking about what I was saying about my girlfriend behind her back. It was really nothing bad, but it was just a lot of my concerns and how I felt. But even then, she still turned them into a way that I was a bad guy. She had said I wanted to use her body, even though throughout our whole relationship, I had never wanted to touch her because I didn't want her to feel as if I was using her in some way. And yes, we would cuddle at times when we were at her house, but that was when friends were around. I never really wanted to engage in anything else, anything more, without her consent. And so I was labeled a bad guy. And it was at the point where all of our close friends knew exactly what had gone on. I wasn't in the wrong. And it was extremely, not extremely, it was very pleasing to know that my friends understood and knew that I wasn't in the wrong. I was never and what they did was wrong. There is a lot of things that I'm not mentioning, mainly because I'd rather not relive it all. And I keep blaming myself at times that I should have done something a different way. I should have changed myself. I should have been exactly what she needed at that moment. But she never really considered my feelings towards anything. And when she was figuring out on her own that she didn't want to be with me anymore, so, or saying that I was making her sad each time I came around, she would just distance herself from me instead of talking to me. And I kept trying to talk to her, and she would never talk to me. She would turn into a lecture where I couldn't say a word, and she had all the right. And so I grew self worth and ended it off. It was sad. I was very sad, but I was also happy because while ending it off, I had found out that she was basically talking to another guy. But this guy was in our friend group, our small circle. And so I was infuriated. I was mad, but nothing more I can do than just believe it. But at times, I think back to our relationship, our moments that we've had, and I tend to miss him. I tend to miss her smile. How dimples appeared with her wide grin. Missed her eyes, very defining feature of hers whenever I would look at her. But I wouldn't want to reminisce too much because I don't want to like her ever again. She had loved me at one point, you would say, but she truly did love me. She wouldn't have changed the image that I was and told people a different story of who I was. Because even her mutual friends, our mutual friends, even after what she said, no one believed her. Not because I manipulated in some way, but because I stayed true to what I am. I never changed myself to be anything different from who I truly am. And so, once again, I do not miss her. I don't think I ever will in that sort of way.